You know what's funny? Nobody ever tells you the truth before you move to a city. They tell you about the food. They tell you about the nightlife. They tell you where to drink coffee. They tell you what landmarks to visit. They tell you which neighborhoods are expensive and which ones are overrated. But nobody tells you what the city feels like, because that's something you only understand after you've lived there. Cities have personalities, not just buildings, not just roads, not just skylines, personalities. Some cities hug you the moment you arrive. Some cities shake your hand. Some cities don't even acknowledge your existence. Hanoi to me felt like walking into a room where everyone already knew each other except me. Nobody was openly hostile. Nobody stood up and told me to leave. Nobody chased me away. But there was this invisible wall, the kind you can't photograph, the kind you can't explain, the kind people only understand after they've experienced it themselves. I kept thinking maybe it was me. Maybe I wasn't smiling enough. Maybe I was smiling too much. Maybe I was speaking too softly. Maybe I was asking the wrong questions. Maybe I looked lost. Maybe I looked too confident. Maybe foreigners always imagine these things. So I changed. I became quieter. I stopped asking random questions. I stopped trying to make conversation. I stopped expecting friendliness, and suddenly, nothing changed. That's when I realized it wasn't just inside my head. It was simply the rhythm of the city. People moved with purpose. Conversations were efficient. Emotions stayed locked behind closed doors. Nobody seemed interested in making life easier for strangers. Everyone looked busy. Everyone looked tired. Everyone looked like they had somewhere more important to be. Maybe they did. You start noticing strange little things. Cashiers barely looking at you. People answering questions with one word. Taxi rides where silence becomes the entire conversation. Coffee shops full of people sitting together without saying much. Crowded sidewalks where everyone flows around each other without ever truly seeing each other. It isn't dramatic. It's subtle. Death by 1,000 tiny moments. Each one means nothing. Together, they create an atmosphere. People always ask for proof. What exactly happened? Nothing spectacular. That's the point. No one robbed me. No one attacked me. Nobody screamed in my face. There wasn't one defining moment. There were hundreds of tiny interactions that slowly painted the same picture. The human brain is a pattern recognition machine. When enough small moments point in the same direction, you stop calling them coincidences. You start calling them observations. I remember sitting alone in a cafe one afternoon, watching people pass by. Thousands of faces, almost nobody smiling, nobody laughing loudly, nobody randomly talking to strangers. Everyone looked like they carried invisible weight, like happiness had become something private, something you only shared with family, never with the outside world. It made me wonder, how much of a city's personality comes from history? How much comes from economics? How much comes from generations teaching the next generation how to survive? Children don't invent cultures. They inherit them. Maybe that's what I was seeing. Not rudeness, not kindness, just habits passed from one generation to another. Trust carefully, speak carefully, smile carefully, open up carefully. Those lessons don't come from nowhere. They come from experience. I respect that. Life teaches different lessons depending on where you're born. Still, respecting something doesn't mean pretending it feels comfortable, because it didn't, at least not at first. The strange thing is that after months of living there, I started changing too. I stopped smiling at strangers. I stopped making small talk. I stopped expecting eye contact. I stopped saying thank you as enthusiastically. I became efficient, short, direct, emotionally economical. One day I caught myself answering someone exactly the same way that had once bothered me. That's when it hit me. Cities don't just shape skylines, they shape people. Spend enough time somewhere, and you slowly become part of its rhythm without realizing it. That's probably the most dangerous thing about any environment. It doesn't ask for permission before changing you. It simply does. A little every day. Until one morning you wake up sounding like everyone else. I don't think most people notice it. Fish don't notice water. People don't notice culture. They simply call it normal. Then I visited other parts of Vietnam again. It felt like someone had turned the lights back on. Conversations happened naturally. People joked with strangers. Someone asked where I was from. Another person recommended food without me asking. Taxi drivers wanted to chat. Restaurant staff laughed with customers. Old ladies smiled. Kids waved. Nobody was pretending life was perfect. They simply seemed more willing to share small moments with people they had never met. It reminded me that warmth isn't measured by grand gestures. It's measured by tiny interactions. A smile, a greeting, 5 extra seconds, a little patience. None of those things cost money, but together they completely change how a city feels. Whenever I mention this, people immediately become defensive. You're stereotyping. No, I'm describing what I experienced. Those aren't the same thing. Experiences are personal. Stereotypes become dangerous when we insist every individual fits them. I never believed that. I've met incredible people in Hanoi, people with hearts bigger than anyone would expect, people who quietly help others without asking for recognition, people who remain loyal for life once they call you family. Some of the strongest friendships I've built happened there. That's what makes the city fascinating. It's difficult to enter, but meaningful once you're inside. The problem is that most people never get inside. Visitors experience the surface. Residents experience the depth. Those are two completely different worlds. Both are real. Both deserve to be acknowledged. What frustrates me isn't that people disagree with my experience. It's when they insist my experience couldn't possibly be real simply because theirs was different. Truth doesn't work like that. A city of millions can produce millions of different stories. Mine happens to be one of them. I don't regret living there, not for a second. Some of the hardest lessons I've learned came from that city. It taught me patience. It taught me observation. It taught me not to mistake silence for weakness. It taught me that trust earned slowly often lasts longer than trust given freely. It taught me that every city has its own emotional language. You either learn to speak it, or you spend your whole time wondering why nobody understands you. Maybe that's the real lesson. Sometimes a city isn't trying to reject you. It's simply asking whether you're patient enough to understand it. Some people are. Some people aren't. Neither answer is wrong. It's just life.